Hello and welcome back. We're looking at the decision for God today, and it is simpler than you think. It's simpler than we make it out to be. Indeed, you could say the same of spirituality in general, is that there are ideas that are simple, they're disarmingly simple, with emphasis, deliberate emphasis here on disarming. They're disarmingly simple, and they're so simple that the so-called rational, thinking, intellectual mind absolutely refuses to grasp them and wants to take you off on its own tangent of overthinking, overanalysis, confusion, excess activity, and frustration that we refer to as life. It's what passes for life, but it's actually not our real life at all. And the entire spiritual path, no matter what tradition or traditions you practice or were raised in, is about setting the ego aside. It's about removing the barriers that we ourselves have imposed to truth, to the awareness of love's presence, as this course describes it. In other words, to our experience of who we are. We've put the barriers up. We can remove them. And that is what spiritual practice is. It's removing these barriers to our awareness of truth, the barriers to truth. And the decision that we're talking about here is the decision for God. We're in the very last section of chapter 5 of the text. It's section 7. It's entitled The Decision for God. And quite simply, we allow our inner teacher, the Holy Spirit, to decide for God for us. We give our decision making over to our inner teacher. Now, the ego says, no, you can't give your decision making power away. Don't give it away to an outside agent, something foreign, something that's outside of you. Well, guess what? The Holy Spirit's not separate from you. The Holy Spirit, your inner teacher, is in your mind, a part of you. So you're not giving it away. You're simply choosing sanely and wisely when you side with your inner teacher, when you side with the Holy Spirit, when you choose God instead of the ego. We're really not the ones making the decision. The ego thinks it is the all, the end all, be all, everything. It's nothing. When we choose to make decisions with this illusion, we inevitably suffer because we fear that we're going to be attacked from without. So we construct one elaborate defense after another against an attack that often never comes. I mean, how often in your experience can you recognize that you spent so much time worrying about something, an event or a conversation that never happened, something that never ever came to pass, yet you convinced yourself that this crisis was imminent? Now, a lot of us waste time in our lives on just such a thing. We can all relate to it because we've all done it. So we allow the Holy Spirit to decide for God for us. Now, that's the very tail end of this section, where there are several sentences of italicized text that I invite you to read over and over. It's what we tell ourselves when we notice that we've been carried away and distracted. In other words, that we're ego clinging and we're not wholly joyous. We've said several times here, and it's worth repeating, that anytime you are not wholly and completely joyous, you can bet 100% for sure that you have sided with the ego and that you see yourself as an individual self-sustaining survival unit in that moment, doing pitched battle with other individual self-sustaining survival units and attacking yourself in the process. Because there are no separate individual self-sustaining survival units. So when we lash out and attack, we're always attacking ourselves. Now, here's the corollary, and this is happy. When we forgive, we're always forgiving ourselves. When we extend the Holy Spirit, we're extending the Holy Spirit to ourselves. When we extend love, we're extending love to ourselves. Very, very powerful. Very powerful. There's no one out there, so to speak. We can't separate ourselves from God. This should be something that engenders joy, and I would hope a deep relief, because often we try, and sometimes it seems like we succeed, but we try to convince ourselves otherwise. We can't separate ourselves from God. The separation never took place. Ideas leave not their source. We're invited to accept what this course refers to as atonement for ourselves. That's the correction, by the way, of our inner teacher, central to which is the acknowledgement that the separation never occurred. This perceived separation from God never occurred. God's not separate from us. Our brother is not separate from us. There's no separation of any kind, period, any place, anywhere. Never has been, is not now, never will be. This is accepting atonement for ourselves, which we're invited to do. When we accept God's infinite care and the power of that care, it comes as a deep relief. We're getting out of our own way and not thinking that we have to do everything ourselves on our own. We don't. And when we do, we run around frantic. We become overwhelmed in the world, in life. We become stressed out. And our modern societies view this insane state of mind as a badge of honor. People actually believe that they're good citizens, diligent little consumers, if they're stressed out, freaked out, and frantic, always racing. Where are you going? Where are you running so fast? Just a question. We're invited to relax and trust. Oh yes, this is what the spiritual path is about, is leaning into the care of God, accepting it, accepting the guidance of our inner teacher, allowing our inner teacher to decide for God for us. This is a path of relaxing and trusting. Now, is this active? Well, actually, yes. Yes, it is, but not in the sense that the world sees it. Here in the world, we believe that we have to do. We have to always be doing something. We value productivity. What does that actually even mean when you really think about it? There are obligations that we have, like paying the bills, paying the rent, the mortgage, making sure the lights are turned on, that we have water, things like that. So we meet those things, we pay the bills. This is not about checking out. It's really about checking in, isn't it? It's about looking within for the solutions because they've always been there. The Holy Spirit is part of you. Your inner teacher is inner, inner. That word is chosen deliberately, deliberately. Inner teacher is part of you. When we relinquish our need to control every situation, then we can relax into the care of God, to the guidance of our inner teacher, who knows all ends. We ourselves, in little ego mind, do not know all ends. That's why what we attempt to do in the world is often a band-aid, isn't it? We might get some temporary satisfaction, or we might feel some temporary relief, and it's temporary, doesn't last. Soon the next crisis may be upon us. Contrast that with allowing our inner teacher to decide for God for us. Contrast this with allowing our inner teacher to completely run the show. Thought, speech, deeds, everything we think, say, do. Every situation, give it over to your inner teacher. The ego naturally, quite naturally, rails against this and wants you to go back to the way things were, where you, as an independent, self-sustaining survival unit, thought you had it all figured out. Yet we know that we don't have it all figured out. That's why we turn to spirituality in the first place, because we recognize deep down that there's more to it than simply getting up, eating breakfast, going off to work, and coming home at night exhausted, or if you work from home, staring at the screen all day long, or standing on the telephone all day long. And in the evening, you're equally exhausted, right? There's more to it than that. We all know this. That's our inner teacher's call, speaking to us. How this plays out in each of our lives looks differently, but the call is one and the same. The content of it is exactly the same. So when you're motivated to watch this video, when something that appears to come out of my mouth here lands for you, it's your inner teacher speaking to you. And we would all do very, very well. It would be very kind of us to answer the call. Call goes out to all of us, all of the time. There appear to be few people in the world that really practice their spirituality because not everyone's listening. Yet you are. There's something that I'm going to say, maybe I've already said it, maybe I'm about to, that's really going to impact you today, and it's why you're watching. So we're invited to pay attention to the messages, to what our inner teacher says. And the purpose of this is to share the Holy Spirit with our brother. It's to heal the mind. We do it by sharing, by extending love, by extending the miracle of forgiveness to our brother. A healer must heal himself or herself. Yeah? We've got to heal ourselves. If we don't, then we won't be able to understand the very first sentence of the text of this course. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. So we're invited to heal the mind. This is what Jesus asks for, is help, assistance in healing the mind. This is the call. Will you answer it? See, when we side for the ego, when we want to go run off and hide and see ourselves as individuals, we're choosing not to be healed. Yeah, it sounds harsh, but it's true. When we choose to see ourselves as something other than we are, other than perfect oneness, i.e., when we choose to see ourselves as individual self-sustaining survival units, we choose not to be healed. Boom. So this choice that we always talk about here, it seems like on every video, becomes that much more important and prominent. And what we're looking for is to raise this to prominence in your mind so that you're aware in the present moment of the choice that you have between your inner teacher and the ego. And you're invited to choose your inner teacher, the thought system of the Holy Spirit, love, light, self with a capital S, and truth rather than illusion. So the importance of this decision, again, cannot possibly be understated. It's the decision for God. And as we wrap up here, I want to return to this notion that we have in the world that we have to do everything, that we have to be so productive, and we have to come up and arrange and orchestrate and manipulate all of these solutions to everything by ourselves. How has that worked out for you? Has that produced lasting happiness? Maybe you've made a lot of money. Great. Fantastic. Congrats. Has it produced lasting happiness? And naturally, it's a question that only you can answer. Yet, when you answer that, well, no, it hasn't, because this just came up and annoyed me, this pissed me off, I'm worried about this person that I have to have a meeting with is really difficult to deal with. So I'm coming up with all kinds of scenarios in my mind over how I'm going to deal with this guy. Right? Has it produced lasting happiness? When we honestly say, no, it hasn't, then we're invited again to return our mind to the Holy Spirit, to this material, to the text of A Course in Miracles, to the workbook for students, if you're going through that, to the idea for the day, to your forgiveness of the Son of God, to your present moment, allowing your inner teacher to run the show and guide you. And whatever it is, we return our awareness to this. Every time that we do it, it brings us right here to the present where the action is. So most of the time, we worry about the past or we stress out about a future event. Neither is here. So life can indeed be seen as a living, waking, breathing meditation. When you notice yourself distracted, anytime you're not wholly joyous, you're scrolling your news media feed and it angers you because people say whatever they want because they can, then bring your awareness back to forgiveness of the Son of God. Or bring your awareness back to your inner teacher and allowing your inner teacher to guide you. These are ways that we set the ego aside. And it's about allowing. It's not about having to be so active, doing things. Spirituality is sometimes seen as a passive endeavor. Well, it's not wholly a passive endeavor at all. Yes, there is a very prominent aspect of allowing and accepting, like we have just discussed, but it's a decision that you make in the present moment for God. How could you possibly be more active than that, to decide for God right now in the present moment? That's not passive, is it? It's a decision. You don't have to do anything with your body or your hands. You do it with your mind. This is a course in mind training. You'll notice it does not concern itself with how we're going to pay the light bill. It doesn't concern itself with physical properties and material phenomena like manifesting cars and houses and a sexy, hot new lover. Nothing wrong with any of those things at all. Yet the course doesn't deal with those. It's a course in mind training. So our work here is to change our mind. And it's a very fast and very effective way to do it when you notice yourself carried away. Bring your awareness back to this practice, forgiving the Son of God. If you're doing the workbook, bring your awareness back to the idea of the day. Bring your awareness back to the present moment and allow your inner teacher to guide you. It's simpler than you think. We're the ones that make it complicated. And you know what's really cool and really, really, truly uplifting? We don't have to make it complicated. You don't have to. You really don't. All right. So, as always, I invite comments and questions here on this thread. I really so appreciate your joining me. And thank you especially to all of you who have recently subscribed. There have been a number of you in the past week or so. So thank you for joining me. If you have not yet subscribed, the subscription button's here in the corner. That's the red arrow, and I invite you to click that and go ahead and join us here. It's an international community. There are people here literally from all over the world, which is one of the beauties of using this modern technology, is we can impact one another's lives. And we can do this in a very profound way without ever having to physically meet. Now, if I actually do in person physically meet some of you, how fun would that be? It'd be really fun, actually. A joyous occasion for sure. But we don't know if we're ever going to meet people. Your questions, by the way, can really impact and positively influence someone on the other side of the world. We don't know. So if you've got them, please feel welcome to ask them. And I will see you again here very, very soon. Thank you.